War is chaos, yet humanity has always tried to impose order, even in battle. These attempts take shape as the rules of engagement, or ROE guidelines for when to shoot, who to target, and when to hold fire. ROE are not just legal jargon. They are life and death instructions for soldiers on the front lines. They reflect a nation's conscience, aiming to wage war without losing its soul. Born in conference rooms, drafted by policymakers, these rules must be applied in split seconds under fire. The gap between written rules and battlefield reality is vast. Soldiers are trained for aggression, yet ROE demand restraint, sometimes against every survival instinct. The modern soldier must be both warrior and moral philosopher, making impossible judgments in the heat of combat. Is that approaching car a threat or just a family? Is the man with a shovel a bomber or a farmer? ROE try to answer but never fully resolve these questions. This tension is the heart of modern warfare and the ultimate test of military leadership. ROE are a paradox, an attempt to civilize the uncivilized, to bring order to chaos. Commanders must balance mission success, soldier safety, and ethical standards, walking a tightrope with lives and honor at stake. The challenge is not just following the rules, but interpreting them under pressure. In the end, the true character of an army is revealed in how it navigates this paradox. The rules of engagement are the fragile line between discipline and disaster. The formal rules of engagement are written, clear, and carried by every soldier. They're distilled from international law and military doctrine. Do not fire unless fired upon. Positive ID required. But war isn't fought by lawyers, it's fought by people under extreme stress. In combat, unwritten codes emerge, passed from veteran to rookie, shaped by survival and shared experience. The unwritten code is about protecting your own, navigating moral grey areas the official ROE can't anticipate. Tension between these codes is constant. The formal rules protect civilians, the informal ones protect comrades. Sometimes the unwritten code urges action when the official rules demand restraint. This isn't a battle of good versus evil, but of competing priorities. Unit survival versus strategic goals. A good commander knows both sets of rules shape behavior. He must align the formal ROE with the realities his soldiers face, or risk cynicism and dangerous divergence. When the official rules seem out of touch, the unwritten code can take over, blurring right and wrong. The culture of a unit is defined as much by what's whispered as by what's written. Leadership means bridging the gap between policy and practice. The balance between formal and informal rules is delicate and vital. When that balance is lost, the consequences can be dire. Rules in war are ancient, but modern ROE emerged in the 20th century. The Hague and Geneva Conventions codified the laws of armed conflict, protecting civilians, banning certain weapons. For centuries, war was simpler. Armies met in open fields. Soldiers and civilians were distinct. But guerrilla warfare, insurgency, and terrorism blurred those lines. The enemy now hides among civilians. The battlefield is everywhere. This demanded more complex, restrictive rules for Western armies. Vietnam was a turning point. ROE entered the lexicon as US leaders imposed tight restrictions to avoid escalation. Pilots needed visual ID. Ground troops faced strict rules in populated areas. Soldiers felt hamstrung, fighting with one hand tied behind their backs. The legacy was skepticism toward politically driven ROE and a push for clear objectives and operational freedom. The Weinberger-Powell doctrine insisted on overwhelming force and clear goals. Modern ROE are designed not just to constrain but to enable victory by balancing ethics, law, and strategy. The evolution of ROE reflects the changing face of war and the lessons learned from costly mistakes. The rules are now as much about winning hearts and minds as defeating the enemy. Vietnam's jungles exposed the limits of ROE in counterinsurgency. The enemy blended with civilians, making every villager a potential threat. ROE, drafted far away, demanded strict procedures, sometimes requiring deadly delays. Soldiers felt the rules prioritized enemy safety over their own, eroding trust in command. Into this vacuum, a darker unwritten code emerged. Better to be judged by 12 than carried by 6. The pressure for results led to blurred lines between combatant and civilian. In the chaos of battle, distinctions demanded by ROE could vanish, replaced by fear and anger. The My Lai massacre was the tragic result of abandoning both formal and moral codes. Vietnam taught that ambiguous objectives and politically driven ROE can corrode ethics and leadership. A clear, consistently applied ethical framework isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. The cost of failure is measured in lives, trust, and the soul of the military. Iraq brought a new kind of war, an asymmetric battlefield with no clear front lines. Insurgents hid among civilians using IEDs and suicide bombers. Every street was a potential threat. ROE became more detailed and restrictive, emphasizing civilian protection and strategic legitimacy. Soldiers trained in escalation of force, equipped with non-lethal options, and urged to show courageous restraint. Yet the tension between survival and restraint remained acute. Split-second decisions could mean life or death for soldiers or innocents. The psychological burden was immense. Hesitate and risk comrades, act and risk civilians. Incidents like Haditha and Abu Ghraib showed that even with strict ROE, breakdowns happen. These failures were not just individual but systemic, failures of leadership and command climate. Iraq reinforced that ROE must be constantly taught, adapted, and enforced. Ethical health requires active, vigilant leadership at every level. The lessons of Iraq echo Vietnam. Rules alone aren't enough. Leadership is everything. The cost of failure is strategic, moral, and deeply personal. ROE are a living tool, not a static checklist. The battlefield may change, but the need for ethical command endures. The commander stands between strategic goals and brutal battlefield realities. Above, he's tasked with political objectives, winning hearts and minds, stabilizing regions. Below, his soldiers face immediate threats and want to survive. ROE are meant to bridge these worlds, ensuring tactical actions don't undermine strategy. But to troops, restrictive rules can feel like a liability, not protection. The commander must translate abstract intent into practical orders, explaining not just what, but why. He must show that restraint serves long-term success, not just short-term safety. Leadership means convincing soldiers that ethical conduct is as vital as tactical victory. The balance is perilous. Too much focus on tactics risks strategic disaster. Too much on rules risks losing trust. The unwritten code can diverge if leadership falters. The best commanders walk this tightrope, enforcing rules while understanding their soldiers' reality. Success depends on bridging the gap between policy and survival. Command is a heavy burden, magnified by the demands of ROE. Every decision, fire or hold, attack or wait, carries life and death consequences. The battlefield is ambiguous. The right answer is rarely clear. Commanders must choose between risking their soldiers or risking innocence, living with the aftermath either way. This leads to moral injury, the lasting wound of making impossible choices. The psychological toll lingers long after the battle ends. Leaders may be haunted by decisions, approving a strike, holding fire, or witnessing loss. Indecision or cynicism can cripple a unit. The ideal leader maintains a moral compass amid chaos. Courage, humility, and resilience are essential. Supporting commanders' mental health is not just compassionate, it's vital for ethical, effective leadership. The weight of command is measured in more than victories. It's measured in the scars left behind. The true test is not just surviving war, but surviving it with integrity. Breaking the ROE has immediate and far-reaching consequences. Indiscriminate violence alienates the population, strengthens the enemy, and undermines the mission. Tactical shortcuts create strategic disasters. Hearts and minds are lost, perhaps forever. In the age of global media, a single war crime can destroy a nation's reputation overnight. Commanders risk careers, freedom, and honor. The chain of command is always accountable. The deepest cost is moral. An army that tolerates violations rots from within. Discipline erodes, trust breaks down, and the line between soldier and killer blurs. Rebuilding honor after such failures is a long, painful process. Leaders who allow deviation betray their soldiers and their nation. The lessons of My Lai and Abu Ghraib are clear. Ethical lapses lead to strategic failure and institutional disgrace. The rules are not obstacles, they are the foundation of victory. Upholding them is the commander's most fundamental duty. The cost of failure is measured in lost honor and lost wars. War evolves, but the human burden of decision remains. New weapons and enemies will emerge, but the challenge of imposing order on chaos endures. ROE are the essential tool for maintaining discipline and humanity in war. The tension between written rules and unwritten codes will always exist. The goal is not to eliminate this tension, but to manage it through leadership. Commanders must be tacticians, teachers, and moral guides, bridging policy and battlefield reality. The ultimate lesson, ethical conduct, is central to military success, not a hindrance. An army with a strong moral compass is more resilient, disciplined, and effective. Upholding ethical standards is the highest duty of command. ROE affirm that even in war, there are lines that must not be crossed. They are the compass guiding soldiers home, physically, morally, and spiritually. In the end, the true victory is not just survival, but preserving our humanity.